Hi, this is Mike Schwitz from Sound Connection Inc., and this is my 2017 Installer of the Year submission video. Before I get to my main submission, I'm going to give you a quick outline of my time in the 12-volt industry. In 1994, I got my driver's license and my first car, a 1983 Pontiac J2000 station wagon. I was unhappy with the stereo, like most 16-year-old kids, so I installed a quartered-in EQ booster powering a Radio Shack 10-inch sub in a plywood box that I made in my dad's garage with spare wood laying around. Eventually, I ended up making a custom plywood center console to hold my Discman so I could play it through the cassette adapter. From 1994 to 1996, I was known as the guy in my high school who can install systems. I also made business cards and letterhead in my graphics class to promote my, quote, business of installing stereos for everybody around the high school. From 1997 to 2002, I worked odd jobs at factories and also managing fast food. I did as many stereo installs for friends on the side as I could when the need arose, always knowing that installing stereos was the career that I wanted, just not knowing how to get my foot in the door at the time. In 2002, I took an MECP training class offered by Cartoons in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This was the best shop in Wisconsin at the time. I ended up getting my MECP bronze certificate. Still ended up working in odd jobs and couldn't get my foot in the door in the car audio industry, but I didn't give up. In 2003, I did my first custom enclosure. After reading magazine articles on how to do fiberglassing, I decided I would jump in with both feet and build an entire fiberglass enclosure for my brother's Honda Del Sol. It did well on the internet forums to the point where I ran an internet site called Custom Car Audio Systems, selling and making custom fiberglass enclosures for Honda Del Sols. In 2004, I once again took an MECP training class, once again at Cartoons in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, since my MECP certificate had expired. I once again took the test and passed, getting a second MECP bronze certificate. After that, I decided to pursue my career in car audio. I made a trip to Spokane, Washington to interview at Car Toys. That job did not end up working out for me, so once I got home, I went to every shop in the greater Milwaukee area with my resume and pictures and kept at it until I finally ended up at Warehouse Electronics in one of the worst neighborhoods in Milwaukee. In 2005, I got a job at the local record store selling car audio and installing it. Also in 2005, I started competing in USAC sound-off competitions. And late in 2005, I finally landed my dream job at Cartoons, a shop I had been trying to get into for the last 3 years. In 2006, I was working at Cartoons in South Milwaukee. Because our shop was the host shop for USAC in the area of Wisconsin, I ended up becoming a USAC judge for the next 4 years. It was also my first introduction to doing remote starts professionally. I was taught that clean wiring and serviceability are a big deal when it comes to installation. It was my first taste of doing a lot of custom work in a shop and was my dream job, and I couldn't have been happier to be at a quality shop finally. In 2007, I was still working at Cartoons, doing lots of custom work. In the fall of 2007, I had the opportunity to do a SEMA build for Optima batteries. With 3 weeks before SEMA to go, I was more than confident I could get the job done in time, except another shop dropped the ball, and they couldn't finish the second truck for them, so with 3 weeks to go, I got 2 trucks dropped off to be done by SEMA. I got them both done, and I went to SEMA with Optima batteries, and it was a very wonderful experience that I will never forget. I started out 2008 still at Cartoons, but in March of 2008 they closed their doors. I did get my first magazine feature in Diesel World, April of 2008, with the build I did at SEMA. In July of 2008, I ended up getting a job at Stay Tuned Customs in Waukesha, Wisconsin, doing more custom work, and learned leather kits while I was there. At every shop I've worked at along the way, I've picked up a little something to help me become a better installer. In 2009, I was still at Stay Tuned Customs, doing more and more custom and larger builds, and refining my skills and style. In 2010, I ended up getting a job semi-outside of the industry at Truck Outfitters, installing truck accessories, toppers, snowplows, doing a lot of remote starts because in the middle of winter in Wisconsin, that's what you do. I also learned window tint at the time, a skill I am glad to have, but glad that I don't ever have to use. In 2011, I got back into the 12-volt industry, working at Lake Country Customs in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The shop did everything from upholstery, custom airbrushing, the boats, a lot of Harleys, a lot of custom work, and remote starts throughout the winter. I also once again had the honor of doing a SEMA build for Optima batteries in a AMX. 2012, I was still working at Lake Country Customs. Our biggest build for the year was an executive limo conversion to a Suburban for the owner of Milwaukee Harley-Davidson. The SEMA build from 2011 for Optima batteries was featured in Popular Hot Rodding in August. And in October of 2012, I moved to Minnesota to work for Sound Connection, Inc., a Mobile Electronics Magazine Top 100 list for the first time. In 2014, I worked for Audio Video Extremes, doing a lot of dealership work. We also built a demo parade vehicle for a local radio station, and I, for the second time, made the Mobile Electronics Magazine Top 100 list. In 2014, I had moved to Virginia to work at Safe and Sound Electronics. Wasn't really the shop I was looking for and wasn't the fit for me. Ben Larson at Sound Connection Inc. got a hold of me in mid-2015 and asked me to come back as installation manager in Minnesota. Before I left Virginia, I helped my good friend Chris McNulty at Driven out for a couple weeks to get him caught up before I left town. I learned quite a few things from Chris, really enjoyed working with him, and wish I could have stayed longer, but I do make a point to go out once or twice a year and help Chris out as needed. Upon getting back to Minnesota and working at Sound Connection Inc. as the installation manager, I was once again contacted by Optima Batteries to do another SEMA build for them. The winter included a ton of remote starts, and I was busy doing lots of custom as soon as I had gotten back. The Emmy Awards went from top 100 to top 50, and unfortunately I fell at place 51 that year. Just made me work harder from there on out to make sure I made the top 50. 2016 was once again a very busy year for me in my career. I'm still at Sound Connection Inc. as installation manager, again doing lots and lots of custom, lots and lots of remote starts. This year I did make the Mobile Electronics Top 50 list and actually tied for top 12 and ended up in 15 after the tiebreaker. I got my third magazine feature in Mobile Electronics Magazine of 2016, along with building 3 sound quality cars that compete nationally and going to a lot of trainings, whether they were local vendor trainings, manufacturer trainings, or my first K-Fest last year at Dallas. 2017 has so far been my best year in my car audio career, still at Sound Connection Inc., still doing lots of custom. In March of 2017, we moved from our old building just outside of town into a new building that we had to demo, remodel, and rebuild to our standards. It's a very beautiful building, a much better location, giving us a lot more foot traffic. I once again made the Mobile Electronics Magazine Top 50 list, and this year I actually made the Top 12 list. I got my 4th and 5th magazine features in Mobile Electronics Magazine June 2017 for the Impala I built, and July of 2017 for the Ford Mustang I built. Again, we went to lots of trainings at our shop, being a Focal training down in the cities, Kenwood trainings, JL trainings, CompuStar iData trainings, and I also went to K-Fest in Indy to network with my friends and learn some more, along with going to an Audio Frog tuning in Indiana. This is the system overview of my main vehicle entry, a 2016 Chevy Impala LTZ. The theme for the install was a stealth install, allowing the customer to retain full usage of his trunk while not showing that we had installed a high-end aftermarket stereo. The factory multimedia center was retained to allow the customer to use the factory navigation and phone connectivity along with steering wheel controls. An Audison Bit 1 was used to process the signal, allow us to add crossover points, time alignments, and equalize the signal to get the best possible sound out of it. It also allowed us to have multiple presets for the customer for multiple seating positions. The Audison DRC MP was custom molded into the center console right in front of the armrest to allow easy access while not standing out from the interior of the vehicle. A Hertz 4-channel amplifier was used to power the Hertz Mille component speakers run active in the front of the vehicle. The speakers were mounted with composite plates, fast rings, soldered and heat shrunk to the factory wiring to allow us to go back to stock if the customer ever chose to get rid of the car, and all speakers were installed using nutserts and machine hardware. A Hertz 2-channel amplifier runs the Audison Voce coax speakers in the rear doors to allow for some rear fill. They were also mounted using custom composite plates and fast rings to seal them to the door panels. A Hertz HP 3001 mono subwoofer amplifier was used to power a pair of Mille 10-inch subs and a custom amp rack enclosure. The amp rack and enclosure was built, assembled, and wired outside of the vehicle, utilizing quick disconnects for easy serviceability. 2 Mesa batteries back up the factory electrical system to make sure he has reserve power when listening at the lake or at parties, and just to keep enough juice flowing to the amplifiers. All wiring in the vehicle was covered in color-coded TechFlex and secured every 3 to 6 inches throughout the vehicle. I usually like to take a good look at the vehicle that I'm working on, look at any factory body lines, front, back, inside the car, and try to match what I'm going to do with something that's going to flow from the vehicle. Originally, I had decided on using the front grille to be the enclosure in the trunk. It had nice lines, nice openings for the subs. Once I got it drawn out on a piece of wood, playing with it as much as I could, I really just didn't end up liking where it was going. So I went back to the vehicle, took a look around again, spent some time just staring, trying to figure out what would work for what I was trying to do. And then the dashboard stood out at me. It had great lines, multiple layers, multiple different materials, openings that would work for what I wanted to do. So we decided to go with the dashboard and the front of the vehicle as the theme for our trunk build. We mimicked it as much as possible, with the radio area being the opening for the subwoofers, the factory vents next to it for grills, and the center channel on the top of the dashboard now covers the Bit 1 processor in the trunk to mimic the actual dashboard in the front of the car as much as we could in the rear of the car. Multiple different materials were used throughout this build to keep the theme of the stock dashboard intact going into the trunk. We had an OEM color-matched vinyl die made by a local supplier so that we could match the factory color of the dashboard. We also got OEM matched paint for anything that would be near a factory painted piece so that it did not stand out. Acrylic and RGB lighting were used in the trunk to add some custom accents to it. The subwoofer tub, where the 2 Mille 10-inch subs reside, was painted black and polished and buffed to a mirror finish. A grill mesh was used to cover the subwoofers and to keep anything from falling into the subwoofer enclosure. And for the stealth panel, matching trunk liner was chosen to make it look as stealth as possible in the vehicle. Multiple techniques were used in this build to accomplish the finished product, from layered chamfers in the trunk to fiberglassing the base of the enclosure along with the tub where the subwoofers reside, to edge lighting, to custom molding in a DRC and painting, along with all of the wiring, soldering, integration with the OEM system that we needed to use to accomplish our goal. And solutions. We didn't really run into too many issues during the installation of this system. My sales manager, Derek Brazel, does a very good job of going over everything with the customer, picking out the proper equipment that will fit and be appropriate for the build that we are doing. All of our installs are like this, so we very rarely run into any issues. The only issue I did run into is I went out for a week to help Chris McNulty at his shop in Virginia and ended up extremely sick while I was there. I hadn't eaten in about a week and got back to our shop and had a big project I needed to finish. My solution was I'd work through it. I lived off of Gatorade and applesauce for about 2 weeks. Multiple times during the week, I would go home, take a nap in the afternoon, and come back and work until 10 or 11 at night to get the vehicle done in time for the Cars and Coffee event we had coming up, where the customer was promised he would have his vehicle. Electrical and operational integration. This is a large part of my day-to-day job. At Sound Connection Inc., a large portion of our installs retain the factory radios. With how integrated they are into the new vehicles, it's almost a must. We do a lot of small, low-current Class D amplifiers, either hidden underneath seats, behind motorcycle fairings, in factory cubbies, or anywhere else they can be put out of sight. We also like to use factory wiring whenever possible. We'll interrupt behind the radio when we're doing an aftermarket amp install, either to a line output converter or to high-level inputs on an amplifier, and using 9-wire to feed the signal through the factory wires out to the new speakers mounted in factory locations. Anytime we have a large system, we will add an extra battery to make sure the car has enough current capacity to handle the amplifiers that we installed, and also to give certain customers extra reserve capacity, whether they're at a volleyball game listening to their radio, hanging out at the lake, or just listening to it in the yard while they do yard work because it's better than the stereo they have sitting in their screen porch. Cosmetic integration. This is a large part of my day-to-day installation at Sound Connection Inc. From choosing dash kit manufacturers that have a good fit and match the factory finishes, to using matching carpets, vinyls, and dyes in our projects, whether it is a carpet-wrapped fiberglass box to match the trunk, an OEM-matched trunk liner to make a panel look like it came from the factory, or using vinyl to match sail panels and subwoofer enclosures, to matching vinyl with the black dashboard in a vehicle and carbon fiber accents in it, to using paint on grills and matching carbon fiber accents they already have in their vehicle, to using a glove box to house a new radio in a classic car to not mess up the cosmetic look of the car and date it with a new radio, to making aftermarket screens fit where they didn't and look factory, to painting small parts in the interior to accent the interior trim while matching the outside of the body and bringing it into the vehicle. Everything we do at Sound Connection is try to make our installs look like they came in the vehicle. Accessibility. One thing I learned very early in my career was to make sure all equipment and anything that we add to a vehicle is easily accessible and serviceable, whether it's mounting an amplifier underneath a front seat, to replacing a factory amplifier with an aftermarket amplifier in an easy-to-service location, to the multiple false floors that we build where you can access all of the equipment with removal of a couple panels. Choices in hardware. At Sound Connection Inc., we make sure we choose the proper hardware for the job we are doing and the vehicle it's going into. We have partnered with our local Fastenal to have bins on hand that they stock on a weekly basis, and they are also a phone call away and will deliver anything we need on demand for the install that we are doing. We use stainless steel hardware on boats, marine installs, power sports, or anything that will be exposed to the elements. Nutserts and machine bolts are used anytime we're mounting to a factory panel, whether it is a speaker adapter, a speaker, an amplifier, or a subwoofer enclosure. Whenever possible, we like to use factory mounts, whether it's for a radio install, a speaker install, or using a factory amp plate to mount an aftermarket amplifier. Materials. We stock a large variety of materials in our shop to ensure that we have the proper finish for any install that we are going to do. Whether it's having acrylic to make LED rings, custom accents, bases for pods, ABS and HDPE plastics for making speaker adapters, amp boards, or anything else that we need that for. We also keep a large variety of suede, carpet, and vinyls in stock, whether it is to match a factory interior or to add a little custom accent like the suede nose in the Volkswagen Golf for a customer who likes to touch things and give them a sense of feel on their install. Mounting. Everything we do at Sound Connection is mounted to be safe and secure for the customer. We use nutserts anytime we are inserting anything into a factory metal panel, to using threaded inserts and subwoofer enclosures to ensure the subwoofer can be serviced and replaced without any extra holes needed in the enclosure. We use composite adapters on any speaker that we need to put in, whether they are custom made from acrylic, HDPE, ABS, or off-the-shelf adapters when it is appropriate. Fast rings are used on all installs for speakers to give the best possible sound and couple the speaker to the door panel. Placement. This is very key in our day-to-day installation practices. We try to be as non-intrusive to the vehicle as possible, whether it's hiding an amp underneath a seat or behind a panel to keep it out of the way from the customer either damaging it, scratching it, or just being in their way in general. We've done them under the rear deck of vehicles, securely mounted with nutserts for a customer who uses his trunk daily and had a lot of equipment he needed out of the way, but needed it to power the system. We do a lot of false floors, keeping all the equipment underneath a new cover, raising the factory floor only 3 to 5 inches, depending on the circumstances, or hiding amps back where factory amplifiers were to make the best use of space and place it where it will. To me, this goes hand in hand with placement, whether it's keeping an amp rack out of the way from a customer so they can fully use their trunk, to building fiberglass boxes in the side of a trunk to house a subwoofer out of the way to reduce wasted space in the vehicle, to again using false floors to put all the equipment in the trunk but not take up the entire trunk space. We also do a lot of extra batteries, and we don't just want a huge battery sitting in the trunk of a customer's car, so we try to find a way to hide it, keep it out of sight, but securely mounted and usable for the customer. Whether it's built into a spare tire with a cover covering it that allows the customer to still access and use their spare tire, to putting it in a side cubby opposite the factory battery in the trunk of a car to keep weight distribution even and to keep it out of sight. Functionality of finished install. This is a big part, again, of what we do at Sound Connection. Every vehicle is thoroughly tested with a check in and out sheet to determine the functionality of the install when it came in and after our upgrades. From a simple radio install to steering wheel controls functioning to a remote start doing everything the customer wanted. Custom controllers are mounted within easy reach of the customer and as non-intrusively as possible. Bass knobs are installed where the customer would like if it is a possibility, along with heated seat switches being mounted in a factory-like location for easy use. Attention to planning and design details. This is the most critical part of our day-to-day installations. We always make a point to go over a system thoroughly with the customer, along with any design details they want us to incorporate into the build. The proper equipment is chosen that will properly fit their vehicle in the locations provided, or any modifications that we'll need to do are discussed and planned for early. Fabrication skills. As the lead installer at Sound Connection, this is an area where I need to excel. From new fabrication, such as making a subwoofer enclosure to fit underneath the seat of a truck, to just giving you an enclosure that'll take up the least amount of space in your trunk while still giving you the best performance. We also do a lot of amp racks, whether they are custom underneath a hidden panel on the floor or just to mount any amplifier we add to the vehicle too. We also do a lot of custom panels to include your own personal touch to your trunk, along with making speakers fit where there were no speakers before to give you the best possible imaging and staging. Modified fabrication. This is an area where we feel we excel at Sound Connection Inc. Whether it's making a new speaker fit in the factory location with a little bit of modification to completely customizing a sail panel to house a larger speaker. We also do a lot of factory upgraded subwoofer enclosures to house an aftermarket subwoofer and give the customer a little bit more bass than they had before. We've also taken a factory BMW screen out of a different vehicle with a larger screen and integrated it into a vehicle that wasn't factory options with such a large screen. We also do a lot of glove box radios in classic cars to not modify the factory dashboard to where it can never be returned to stock, still giving the customer modern conveniences, but without making it known that they upgraded the stereo in their vehicle. Using and implementing new technology. A big part of our day-to-day job is making sure a customer can integrate their new portable device, whether it's their phone, an MP3 player, or a video player, to their factory or aftermarket deck. Whether it's adding a Bluetooth adapter, an aux-in adapter, or the newest CarPlay Android Auto deck. Along with the connectivity to their portable devices, we also allow them to connect to their vehicle's networks by using ADS Maestro pieces whenever possible to give the customer custom gauges, vehicle information, and other critical functions of the vehicle. Also, with new technology, we do a lot in older vehicles, whether it's a 38 Ford, a 49 Mercury, any other vehicle from the 70s, including lots of classic muscle cars. We always try to give them modern, good sound instead of some dry-rotted speakers and an AM/FM radio that barely works. Typically, we'll do these in the glove box to allow a customer to get modern conveniences in their classic car without being obtrusive and showing that they have new technology in a classic car. Installation education. Until the last couple of years, I've had a very informal education history. I took 2 MECP training classes in South Milwaukee at Cartoons back in 2002 and 2004, mainly consisting of going through the MECP basic book along with watching a lot of select product videos on fabrication and installation techniques. The majority of what I've learned through my entire career was from magazines, ranging from back in high school to reading them all the way through becoming certified and getting access to Mobile Electronics magazine. To this day, I still keep a large rack of them in the bay and let anybody read them who wants to read either the history or the techniques that we had learned back in the day. Other than that, I did a lot of just jumping in and doing what I had read in the magazines and jumping in with both feet. As the industry progressed and the internet did, there were a lot of internet forums that helped me progress and show me nationally what can be done and what other shops are doing, starting with Car Sound. And then in 2006, Russell Harley invited me to join the 12 Volt Insider, which changed my life, showed me how good people can be, what you can do in this industry, and allowed me to network with other professionals. For the most part through my career, though, I just said, yeah, I can do that, and jumped in and did it. In the last couple of years, I've been going to as many manufacturer trainings as possible, whether it's Kenwood, JL Audio, CompuStar iData, a recent Focal training with Nick Wingate in Minneapolis. Last year I was at an AudioFrog training in Indianapolis with Andy and Gary. I went to K-Fest Dallas in 2016, and I will never miss another one. And on that, I ended up going to K-Fest in Indy to go through the same classes I had taken back in 2016 so I could get a better idea of what was being taught. Aside from any of those trainings and the magazines, every shop I have worked at, I learned a little bit along the way, whether it was a different technique, painting, upholstery work, remote starts, leather kits. Every place I've worked, I've taken a little piece of that home with me to the next shop that I worked at. My role in training others at the shop. We have 2 new to the industry salesmen, so I've been doing a lot of training over the last 2 years with them, from showing them how product works, installation issues that may arise, the installation techniques we use on a day-to-day basis here. I also share info from the trainings that I go to with everybody in the company on a weekly basis at our weekly meetings. And now, since we lost our lead installer at our second location, I will be doing custom fab training with them, getting them up to speed on making simple enclosures, speaker adapter rings, and anything else that they need from their day-to-day installations. Activities. I go to multiple trainings every year, whether it's a local manufacturer training or Knowledge Fest in Dallas, along with Indy. I also make a point to visit other shops when I'm on vacation or back home in Wisconsin, network with them, see how other shops are set up, how they do things, and in general just visit with my industry friends as much as possible. We also host a bi-weekly Cars and Coffee at our shop to bring in new customers and to give our current customers a place to show off their cars and enjoy some free coffee and donuts and networking in our parking lot with other people who are into cars. I also participate in a lot of online groups and discussions to either help newcomers to the industry learn more or just general discussion on practices, techniques, and installation with other industry professionals. How I network with other industry professionals. A lot of networking nowadays is done on Facebook, whether it's in the 12 Volt Insider Group, Carbide Cults, just talking through Messenger, either helping each other out or just seeing how everybody's family life is going. I also network at local trainings whenever I can with other installers from shops. I'm also good friends with many of the installers in Minnesota, so we'll get together and hang out, talk shop, and just enjoy a Sunday afternoon out at the house. Knowledge Fest has been a big networking event for me, between making new friends, hanging out, and just finding time after hours to sit and talk and learn about how people are doing their jobs across the country. Certificates, awards, and recognition. From early on in my career, I was determined to one day be one of the best in the 12-volt world. From the first time I picked up a Mobile Electronics magazine and seeing that there were awards for being a great installer and a great retail shop, I knew someday I wanted to make that list. In 2012 and 2013, I accomplished one of my goals as an installer and made the top 100 list. The next year, in 2013-2014, I again made that list. In 2015, the list went from top 100 to top 50. I did not make the list that year. I was in 51st place. I worked even harder the following year for 2015 and 2016 to make the top 50 installer list. Again, this year in 2016 to 2017, I made the top 50 installer list. After tying for 12 in 2016, I worked extremely hard this year to push myself and our company to both become a top 12 installer and a top 12 retailer. Another goal early on was to get one of my builds in a magazine. I accomplished that goal in April of 2008 in Diesel World magazine, where the SEMA build I had done for Optima Battery was featured. Then again, in 2012, another SEMA build that I did for Optima Battery was featured in Popular Hot Rodding magazine. Last year, in July of 2016, Mobile Electronics magazine approached me about featuring my GTO build in one of their issues. This year, in 2017, I had back-to-back feature articles in Mobile Electronics magazine. June being the Impala that I built as my featured install, along with July, the Mustang that I built for a friend, which is probably my favorite install I've ever done and is my pride and joy.
Why should I be Installer of the Year? I've asked myself this question a lot during the entire process of submitting this video. At first, I didn't think I should. I'm honestly still in shock that I made top 12 this year. But a few close industry friends and my boss Ben Larson convinced me that I should be. I still don't get it. I'm just a guy who installs stereos. I've always thought of this award as the Best Fabricator Internet Superstar Award. Well, I do a lot of fabrication throughout every year. I have a long way to go before being at the level of guys like Matt Schaefer, Chris Pate, Tom Miller, JT Torres, and other past winners. The Mobile Electronics Installer of the Year award back in 2002. It has been one of my career goals to one day become the Installer of the Year. I've looked up the past winners and people who have submitted over the years, many of whom I am now friends with. Every year, thanks to these awards, I push myself a little harder, learn a little bit more, and try to learn new fabrication techniques to hopefully someday get to the level of the people I have looked up to over the years. Part of my job. Being one of only 2 installers in a very busy shop and the bay manager, I have a lot of duties aside from just custom fabrication. I manage the other installer along with the salesman. I do everything from basic radio installs to deck and fours, custom subwoofer enclosures. For 3 months out of the year, I do 5 remote starts a day. I'm our primary vehicle system tuner. Any remodeling that needs to be done around the shop, mopping floors, anything else there is to do. Everything I do at our shop, I do the best way I know how to, every time. If anybody online or in person needs help or advice, I'm always there to help. While I have a long way to go before becoming the best fabricator, I believe I'm a very solid installer. Everything I do is done to the highest industry standards. No corners are ever cut in our shop. These awards, year after year, have pushed me to strive to be better than I was the year before, for my own personal benefit and for the benefit of my customers. Installer of the Year, I'm not sure about that. To quote a good friend of mine, Chris McNulty, there are plenty of people out there better than me. Thank you all for your time in watching my video and the 11 other Installer of the Year submission videos. I'll see you guys in Dallas with cookies.
Hello, Solomon. This is Ben Larson from Sound Connection. I am Mike Schwitz's employer, and I am submitting a video nomination for him to be Installer of the Year. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I have never had a tech that is as well-rounded or motivated or dedicated as Mike. This guy is the complete package. I mean, he can fabricate with the best of them, which is crazy because he's never been to an actual fabrication class. He's never been to Mobile Solutions. You know, he's completely self-taught, but he's got amazing fab skills. He can wire up anything. He does like 10 remote starters a day. He makes everything look clean. He's always using TechFlex. He's always using industry best practices. Putting nutserts and everything, composite plates, fast rings, sound deadening, O-scope in the amplifiers. He knows how to use an RTA to find where the dips in the signal are from the factory head unit. He knows how to sum. He knows how to, I mean, there's nothing he can't do. It's amazing. Like I said, he's the most well-rounded tech I've ever had. You know, I feel completely confident in giving him my wife's car or any other vehicle and letting him do a full custom stereo and heated seats and leather interior and window tint, and a lift kit, and you know, anything that needs to be done, he can get done. And I think that exemplifies Installer of the Year, to have such an amazingly well-rounded individual. And not only that, he's got the most dedication to this industry that I've ever seen, even going to K-Fest and some of these other guys. I mean, he lives, breathes, and bleeds car audio and vehicle enhancement. You know, he puts on the cars and coffee shows for us. He goes to parades for us. He goes to shows for us. He's spending an enormous amount of free time to build an SPL van for a local competitor here, just to show everybody that SPL doesn't have to be ugly and that it can be really cool. But he's always donating his time to kind of further the industry. And I mean, this guy just goes above and beyond every single day. And I truly think he deserves to be Installer of the Year. So that's it. Thanks.
Oh yeah, I'll be sitting down for this one. I'm about to drop some knowledge.
Mobile Electronics Industry Awards. Top 50s just dropped. Let's look at the scores.
My name's Chris McNulty. I'm the owner here at Driven Mobile Electronics. Many of you know me from my outrageous Facebook profile. I am the machine. I am Evol. I'm here today not to talk about me, not to talk about CNC, not to talk about audio, but to talk about an installer that I am extremely proud of. Somebody I've had the opportunity to work side by side with in the past, and wanted to just reach out and give you an idea from somebody who's worked with him who he is. And that installer is Mike Schwitz. I've known Mike for 3 or 4 years at this point. Initially, quote unquote, meeting him online, Facebook forums, that kind of stuff. Was able to see his work when he lived up north. He moved into the DC, Northern Virginia area a few years back, working at another shop, and I got to hang out with him and talk with him and get an idea of who he really was. Seeing the stuff that he does online, he's a phenomenal fabricator. He's a phenomenal installer. One of, probably in my mind, one of the top 5 guys in the country as far as remote start installations. His speed, his accuracy, his reliability when it comes to that is just absolutely amazing. He's made it to the top 12, and I'm super excited for him. He's been sort of on the outside looking in for a number of years. Mike's a little bit of a quiet guy. He doesn't have quite the outgoing persona when it comes to social media and engagement and that kind of stuff. And he's not in your face like some other guys within the industry are. But once you get to meet him, man, he's absolutely the life of the party. Phenomenal guy to hang out with. The other thing about Mike that's extremely impressive to me is the fact that as good as he is, he's always trying to learn. He's always trying to get better. He's always trying to do more. To see the evolution of his fabrication over the past 2 or 3 years, to see him stretch and reach outside of his comfort zone to do more and to do better is just absolutely amazing. As far as a complete installer, there's a lot of great fabrication guys out there who can build the flashiest stuff in the world, and I'm in awe when I see all of that. What I see with Mike is a guy who builds 100% the right way 100% of the time. If you tear down anything that he's ever done in the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I'd be willing to bet that it's 100% rock solid. He uses industry best practices on everything that he does. He moves forward and gets better and better every day. So I just wanted to reach out and give my support to Mike as Installer of the Year this year. So if my feelings have any bearing on this, take them into account. I absolutely love him. If I could have him here, he would be my #1 tech. He's an awesome dude. So Mike Schwitz, Installer of the Year. Thanks.